Welcome back to our tour of IS-3, where we get to go inside. I am, of course, standing in the commander's position. To my front is a massive 122mm gun on a long front slope. Now, if you look at the front slope of the turret, you'll see that it's got a large, massive plate with bolts on it. Well, if you wanted to exchange the gun, you would remove the plate and the whole thing comes up out of the turret instead of forwards and out. The hatch, well, it's a sort of a big split hatch, for lack of a better term. In the middle is the commander's side. It is originally a TPK-1. What we have in here is a TPK-2. It is traversable, it's adjustable, and it also functions as a basic hunter-killer system. You still have to fight it a little bit as the turret counter-rotates, but when you push the button, in theory, it should spin to more or less where it is you're facing. Radio antenna on the left. To the rear, the ring mount for the 12.7mm machine gun. In this case, you release the latch, the ring is pivoted at one place only, and the entire ring will swing round on top of the loader's hatch. The machine gun was originally a DSHK and was later upgraded to the DSHKM. And, well, that's pretty much it for the outside of the commander. The hatch itself is on a torsion bar, so it's actually not that hard to open or close. And I am standing on the seat, which is just a piece of wood. So no cushions here, but hey, at least it's solid and isn't going to rip. As mentioned, the commander seat is wooden. I can bend it or fold it up out of the way, or I can remove it entirely. The elevation system, which is basically a simple ratchet with 3 positions, can be lifted up and simply pulled out. It's the same with the seat on the loader side, incidentally. Now, the seating position initially doesn't seem too bad, until the first thing you realize is that there is no turret basket. So my right foot, I can actually rest on the support arm for the gunner's seat. The left foot kind of dangles a little bit, or maybe I can squeeze it over. Yeah, I guess it'll work. But there's nothing stopping you from getting your leg caught in the system, should you not be careful. The other problem, of course, is that I have the incoming dome of the big metal turret. And it's not awful because I actually do have physically room for my shoulder, but it is extremely claustrophobic to have this thing coming up and over you, and then, of course, you have the hatch down in front. Actually, I wonder if I can do that. Let's see what happens if I try. Torsion bar is torsion barring. Oh, there we go. Secured in place. Oh, the reticle is still in place in this thing, actually. Fuzzy as all hell. Oh, there we go. Oh, excellent. So it's a steadiometric rangefinder, set for something 2.7 meters in height. And it gives you graduations from 800 to 3 kilometers. Yeah, it's got a mil scale. So, yeah, for the commander who's giving ranges, this isn't bad. All right, the only problem, of course, is he's wearing his helmet, so he's got no room. I'm already pressed up just to put my eyes down here. This isn't the height thing. This is, you only have so much room between your eyeballs and the top of the hatch. It should, there we go, it should fall forward just a little bit there. Okay, so it's functional. So this is how you would sit. Okay, so the radio, 10RK26, if I recall it should be. Just down by my left knee is the manual traverse lock. Intercom system, there's these positions for the gunner as well. And behind me I have stowage for the 122, ventilator fan, and it looks like a bunch of electrics down below. What do I have underneath me? Fire extinguisher mounting, it looks like. Either that or it's for a propellant casing. The floor under my feet, it's rubber. It's a serrated rubber, so it gives you a little bit of traction. And yeah, that's the TC's position. So next you move forward to the gunner. Right, the gunner's seat. The first problem is that he also has no platform. There is no platform in this, but he does not have a seat in front of him that he can rest his foot on. He literally is just lifting up his feet and kind of hooking them a little bit to the right. On the plus side, he is in control of the turret traverse, so it shouldn't be much of a surprise. The one exception is if it is a tank that is equipped with the commander's override, then he's not in control of the turret traverse and his legs are at risk. It's a flaw, I would say. It's a little bit cost-provoking, but it is fairly well laid out. So to his front is the TSH-17 sight, graduated to about 5 kilometers, although it's not realistically the accuracy of the gun. Now, the gun is mechanically perfectly accurate, don't get me wrong. But of course, hitting things, especially with a lowish velocity gun at long range, can be a bit questionable. Not least because range estimation error is far more of a significant problem at long range than simply aiming. He has a couple of lights around. He's got a light attached to the right-hand side. He's got a light forward. The main electrical box for the turret is on his left. Turret traverse motor is electric, so this is the control. The cables come to the motor here. There is a selector between manual or electric, and he can, of course, then engage the manual traverse, manual elevation to the front. His periscope is quite interesting. It is a number 4, or Mark 4. Now, this is basically a Polish design that the British decided, oh, this is bloody brilliant. They started building and everything, and then I guess the Soviets took a look at it. The nice thing about this periscope is it allows you to look forwards or backwards. And especially if you're in a limited position like this, how are you going to look behind you? Okay, you got the question, why would you look behind you? But imagine this periscope on the loader's position, because the loader has one. So the way this works is depending on which mirror set you're using. So you can push this up out of the way, and all of a sudden, you are now looking to the front. If you want to look behind you, however, push it all the way down, turn it around, and by using the lower glass, you can now look around behind you. Very clever, very space efficient. Let's get that up out of the way there. Turret traverse, by the way, is 12 degrees a second, which, if my mathematics isn't too horribly wrong, should give you a full 360 in 30 seconds. 2 additional items. One, I am just noticing that the elevation on the gun is actually very light, as I am now moving the camera up and down. And the other is that whilst there is no support bar, there is still a bar to his front, and it goes from the turret ring all the way down, makes a little left turn and goes right into the center of the turret ring on the floor, into the whole junction box, basically. So this is your slip ring system, or equivalent, which allows power to be transmitted from the engine all the way up into the turret and to power all of the electrical components. Triggers. There is an electrical trigger on the traverse. There is, I presume this is a mechanical trigger for the machine gun. You simply pull back as you're aiming to fire it. And there is another level here which strikes me as being the mechanical backup trigger for the 122. The 122 itself is the D25. Fires your traditional smorgasbord of ammunition, including AP and HE. Not the least, because remember, this is a breakthrough tank. It was designed to go up against particularly anti-tank guns and other fortifications. But if you hit something like a Tiger with a 122 HE, it's going to notice. It's probably going to notice if you hit it with a 122 AP as well, by the way. Certainly a Panther, it's going to notice if you hit it with a 122 AP. There is a elevation lock for the gun directly above the gun on his right-hand side. And, well, that's pretty much the gunner's position. Oh, ammunition to his front. Additional stowage for 122 is to his front there. And, yep, there you go. The loader's position is for particularly small tankers. So what I've done is I've raised the recoil guard, and I made the mistake of doing it with one leg on one side of the chair and one leg on the other side of the chair, and then I realized I was stuck. So after extricating my left leg and being able to relocate it to the right leg, you can see just how much room this 122 takes up. And it's also worth noting that the recoil guard doesn't actually stop you from accidentally getting your hand in the way. It literally just shows you the area of space that you want to try to avoid. So, this is one of those things that when the gunner yells Vystrel, or whatever firing is in Russian, you plaster yourself as far as you can against a wall. Now, again, there are further problems, because plastering yourself as far as you can against this wall is an issue when you have ammunition that comes out to here. I mean, you can see where the support is. So this is up here. I'm trying, for the sake of my life, I'm avoiding this section. I'm avoiding ammunition dear God, you got to be 4 foot nothing. And strong enough to lift 122mm separate loading ammunition. Oh, and there's no turret basket. By the way, rate of fire officially was 2 to 3 rounds per minute. In actual, I think I'm doing well to get that and surviving. There are 28 rounds of 122 scattered around in here. The general loadout was 18 HE and 10 armor piercing. There's additionally another 950 odd rounds for the DT machine gun, which is to the loader's front. That was a magazine-fed machine gun. This is awful. There is more stowage to his front, opposite where the gunner was. He's got a light of his own. He does have in his hatch that folds down. The one good thing, he's got another of those awesome number 4 periscopes, or Mark 4 periscopes, that he can see to his rear or to his front, or twiddle it around and see whatever way he wants to see. Down under the floor, we lifted up one of the compartment lids. It's maybe about 6 inches deep. I guess, I'm sorry, it's a metric tank, so maybe 10 centimeters, 12 centimeters deep, which is not 6 inches, but never mind, 15 centimeters. And you can also see one of the torsion bars that go across. Again, this is a full width torsion bar. It's not like we saw in, let's say, the Object 268, I think it was, which had half width torsion bars. A few more stowage boxes. He had an intercom system. The intercom system connector will be to the front. And yeah, the massive breech, of course, with a very big handle. Horizontally sliding breech block from the right. 2 pieces. Dear God, this is not a tank you want to be in at all. And even if you use up this ammunition, you're then trying to get big 122 projectiles from way forward with very low headroom, and trying to get it back, turn around, put it into the breech, go forward again, get the propellant, come back, put that into the breech, slam it. And people wanted to say, the IS-3 was flawed on the inside. I think the loader's position is a demonstration as to why. I mean, I can accept the commander's position and the gunner's position. I mean, they do the job, but this is awful. The only other good thing about this is I can easily slide forward to the driver's seat. So that is where I shall go next. So this is me standing at my full height at the front of the tank, as if I was going to get a 122 projectile, or maybe, you break your back. Anyway, I shall now attempt to worm my way forward into the driver's position, because I closed the driver's hatch overnight. I guess I didn't want people climbing into the IS-3 or something. Hell. The amount of genes that I have lost getting in and out of these things. Oh, the bait of the money's going for the cameraman, or the bait of the money's going for the camera equipment. Nope. Let's go in on clothes. Even the counterweights. There's 6 big counterweight blocks under here, which do nothing but add weight to the tank and get in your way. It's a family show. Be careful what you say. How in the name of Christ? Ow. Ow. Okay, let's see if I can open the hatch. There we go. Ow. Okay, let's see if this seat will go. Jesus. There appears to be an elevator. Okay, that's an improvement. Come on. Ah. You'd think that would be easier, but unfortunately the angles don't really work. Okay, I am now seated, as you can tell, in the driver's seat of an IS-3. I cannot be seated here for long. My back is not going to take the very unnatural arch that it has had to accommodate in order for me to sit like this. I'll drop back down in a moment. I'll see whether or not there's any hope of me driving this thing with the head down. But I mean, mechanically, yeah, I can push the clutch. I can push the accelerator. I can get the two steering tillers. That's not a problem. Gear shift to my... There's a difference between driving it and driving it in combat, and I am not a driving combat person. I know. I'm 2 meters tall almost. The Russians were not. That Americans in World War II weren't 2 meters tall either, and I can drive a Sherman no problem. Okay, what do we got? Well, what we have is a camera that wasn't on. Camera is now on. All right, so on the left-hand side, start with the intercom for the driver, come down past all the batteries to the left of me, batteries to the right of me, into the Valley of Death with the Chieftain in an IS-3. Death is pretty much guaranteed. Okay, various fuel control valves. I have to assume one is for the left tank, one is for the right tank, one is for the external tanks. The main control panel with presumably circuit breakers inside. This is an internal dog for locking the hatch shut. I don't know why you need it because you already have it on the other side, but okay. Fuel primer system, little primer pumped. Tachometer. So pedals. Clutch, brake. Good. No, that's not clutch brake. So coming right, your pedals, clutch, accelerator. Of course, the brake is the hands here. And the dash. So the dash is going to be, you've got your oil pressure, oil temperature. Keep moving along, you get to your water temperature and ammeter. Speedometer goes to an optimistic 100 kilometers an hour. I don't think it'll make it. To the right-hand side, the air starter system. So there are two 5-liter air tanks that are used to start the diesel engine. So, well, once you get, it's a compression engine. Once you get the thing moving, as long as there's fuel and the piston's compressed, it will go bang. So the two air bottles are there for particularly cold weather starting if the electrics aren't reliable. Further to the right, you can see, because I didn't mention it on the outside, because it's not done on the outside, track tension. There are large screws, which, in order to access them, I guess you have to pull out one of the batteries or something. Granted, these are modern batteries, so maybe they're bigger than they would ordinarily be. But you do your track tension from the inside. Moving a bit further right, manual transmission. It is an 8-speed manual transmission. There is also an auxiliary gearbox which is built into it. I guess in case something goes wrong with the primary, you can move to the alternate. It's a little handle just to the left. Moving further around, master power, hand throttle, and more ammunition. And finally, of course, the controls to the hatch, which are actually simple enough. I mean, my futzing around was just, A, I didn't know what I was doing, and B, I didn't fit. Held in place by one little pin here. And, right, so the next question is, if I drop myself back down again, can I actually close the hatch? Ow! Yes, but the problem is that I'm like 1.5 feet behind where the periscope would be. Okay, that closes this way. Come on, key, come on. Ow! Almost. There we go. It cools down. Oh, that's interesting. So the good news is I could, in theory, drive an IS-3, barely, but the periscope goes here and I don't. Yeah. So the dog, I mean, This is the most serious locking system we've ever seen on a hatch. You'll pull this down, slide this down, and you would screw into this hole here in the hatch. Yeah, this is not going to win the "oh bugger, the tank is on fire" test. Not if you have to undog this screw. No. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, there's a latch on this end as well. There's two of them. Okay. This goes in, and you simply screw, comes up here. Screw this thing in. If you can imagine this being further down. Yeah, you got a bit of a gap here, so I obviously have not closed this all the way. Okay, so I'm only doing this halfway because I'm tired of opening and closing this bloody hatch. As I'm looking up, you better hope that if you're trying to get out through this hatch, that the gun is not directly above you. It's a little bit offset, so we're good to escape. In fairness, it's not too hard to get out through the turret if you have to. It will, of course, take longer. So let's see what happens. Not very much. Ow. Something ripped. My leg is stuck because the chair came up when I came up. My leg got stuck. Okay. I guess I've done worse, but yeah. Okay. I think I'm done with this tank. 7th of September 1945 was when IS-3 was revealed to the public at large. Never to see combat in World War II. It was just a bit like Centurion, just a little bit too late. There was a parade, a victory parade through Berlin. Talk about rubbing your nose in the opposition, but why not? It was led off by a column of infantry, and then there was the mechanized column. The Americans came along with a bunch of M24 Chaffies and M8 armoured cars. Then the French came along. They had their Shermans. The British paraded with their comments. Comments? They probably had comments, but they had comets as well. Finally, it came along 52 of these IS-3s, making a hell of a racket and generally putting the fear of bejesus into the Western Allied powers, going, oh bugger, look at that tank. It looks really mean. It has a really big gun and looks very, very tough. Of course, the reality was somewhat different. Now, overall, they built 2,311, give or take one or two, of these IS-3s at a per unit cost of 350,000 rubles. That sounds like a lot of money. It probably was, especially if you're Soviet. The problem was that they very immediately realized that they had a lot of flaws. So come 1946, and they stopped building them in mid-1946, I should add. So that 2,311, give or take one or two, was all built within a year and a half. 1946, they start a program to fix the problems that were identified with it. This was not a modernization program. This was a, oh bugger, the tank is falling apart program. The fix for each tank was 260,000 rubles. All of a sudden, your tank is almost twice what it was originally. A problem I suspect a lot of the American armaments manufacturers would discover a couple of decades later. But I digress. Come the 1950s, about 1956, I think, the upgrade program to the IS-3M was started. So this is not the 1946 program. IS-3M was the later upgrade, which put in the new engine. It gave you the infrared system. Actually took away some of the commander's overrides. The radio, by the way, was changed, so it's entirely possible what's in there is actually an R113. I cannot identify Soviet radios, so it's either what I originally said was an R113. Somebody's going to put a comment, or maybe I'll just put up a note at the bottom. We'll see. Combat service for such a significant tank that had the impact of it. So the Western Allies, look at this. Oh my God, the IS-3s exist. We must develop tanks purely to counter IS-3. And so you develop M103. You develop Conqueror. Turned out to be completely pointless because of this. But in fairness to the IS-3, they did kind of develop it into the IS-10 or the T-10. which incorporated some of the IS-4 components. IS-4 was supposed to be the real tank that the Soviets wanted. Didn't work out very well. So that saw reasonably long service. The IS-3 itself saw combat basically twice. Once with the Soviet forces as they crushed the Hungarian uprising in 1956, I think it was. And then again in the 1967 war against the Israelis in Egyptian service. They proved pretty tough to knock out, at least from the front, but the problem is that the Israelis are generally better and more mobile. And oh, by the way, they also brought along the one company of 105mm round patents that they had received. So the IS-3 wasn't very successful there either. So that ends your tour of the IS-3 here in Belgium. Oh, if you're curious why it is in Belgium that you have an IS-3, it was a gift from the Soviet Union. Now, they don't know exactly the date, but it was after the fall of the Berlin Wall, but before the fall of the Soviet Union. And they were gifted this and the ISC-152 that they have in the hall behind. Still, of course, completely operational. Makes a very interesting noise. Actually, as if you... Tell you what, why don't I just segue right now to see the IS-3 moving? Now, the IS-3 is impressive enough just sitting still, but you really don't get an idea as to just how menacing this thing is until you see it moving. And oddly enough, the folks here at the Bastogne Barracks are going to help us out.
I don't know if it's possible to express just how unsubtle this tank is. When I was standing 10 feet away on the grass verge, you could feel the vibrations coming through your feet. This thing is crude, it is mean, and it is very unrefined. I kind of like it.